We have the young Mukhopadhyay with us, who's a very alternative artist. I've known Arka for some years now, a very artistic, very talented young man who believes in doing something which is very different from what most other artists do. Arka, may we have you up on stage?
Good afternoon. As Jerry's already said, my name is Arka Mukhopadhyay, and I'm essentially a performing artist, although I find it a little difficult to kind of put a tag on what I do. But I sort of started out in my life doing theatre, and in some ways I still have some connections with that. I'm here not to do a performance in a conventional sense. If the little synopsis which I sent also says that it's something which hovers between a performance and a talk, perhaps. I'm here to share perhaps a little bit about my journeys as an artist in different spaces, and when I say spaces, I mean not just physical spaces, but also different traditions, heritages, etc. So this, this presentation, it's titled "The City of Mirrors." I am with the collective. I wouldn't call it an organization because we have no legal existence yet. So I'd rather call it a collective, which I initiated about a year ago, sometime in July of 2011. And that collective is called the Arshinagur Project. Arshinagur is a Bangla word, as you probably can guess. We've taken the name from a particular song from the Baul tradition, and Arshinagur quite literally means the city of mirrors. So the purpose of my being here is not to talk about us or the work we do, maybe just mention that in passing, but essentially, there's a thought process or there's a way of looking at performing and living which has resulted in this name and the creation of this collective. So that is what I hope to share. So let me start by telling you a story, actually. I know you can't read that, so I'm going to read the story or share the story for you. If you go on Wikipedia and look up, all the important events which took place in the world on the 5th of May, because you can do that, you can just click on a particular date and it tells you that on such and such a date this happened and that happened, and all the pages of recorded history. Yeah? Then this is something you will not find there. That on the 5th of May, in the year 1889, a strange meeting may or may not have taken place between two men in a houseboat on the river Padma, off the banks of a place called Shilaida, which is nowadays in Bangladesh. If that meeting did happen, then in many ways it was a meeting of different worlds, or different worldviews, or different ways of living. Because one of the two men who met that day on that houseboat was Jyotirindranath Tagore. He was the owner of the houseboat, the scion of the illustrious Tagore family of Calcutta, who also happened to be the local landlords. They had extensive zamindari estates there in Bangladesh, and Shilaida happened to be a part of their estates. He was an artist, a playwright, a polymath, a philosopher, a nationalist entrepreneur, one of the first few to join that bandwagon, a musician, and also a mentor to his younger brother, Rabindranath, whose transcendent genius would later obscure Jyotirindranath's own name. On that day, Jyotirindranath was exactly a day over 40. He was born on the 4th of May, whereas Rabindranath's birthday happens to fall around the 9th of May. Although he is now rarely known outside the pale of Bengali nostalgia, at that time he was one of the men who was shaping and emerging a national conscience. He was a molder and a product of history. The other man in that meeting, which may or may not have taken place, may or may not have been a staggering 115 years old at that time. He may or may not have been Hindu or Muslim. Perhaps he was illiterate, perhaps he wasn't. His only brush with history would come a year later when he would exit it. Because his death in 1890 is just about the only part of his life which the archive can lay any claim to with any certainty. But Phokir Lalon Shai, which was the name of the other man in that meeting, which may or may not have been his name, lived outside of time and history, in a spaceless land of myths and shadow truths, where stories made with breath and dreams endure, but mere facts are dust and ashes, to paraphrase the graphic novelist and author Neil Gaiman. From that meeting, which may or may not have happened, Jyotirindranath would draw a pencil sketch of Lalon, said to be the only true likeness in his entire lifetime. Lalon, for his part, might have sung the following song, which is one of 10,000 odd that he allegedly composed. This is what the song says. I'll give you the Bangla first, just for a sense of the sound, and then an English translation. It says, Bari pashe Arshi Nagor, ekor porshi boshot kore, ami ekdino na dekhilam tare, which means that near my home, next to my home, lies the city of mirrors, where the neighbor dwells, the neighbor, a neighbor, some neighbors. But oh, I have not seen my neighbor's face, even for a day. Geram mere ogad pani otar nai kinara, nai toroni pare. Amar mone boro bancha jage, ami kemne shetha jai re, ami ekdino na dekhilam tare. Which means that endless waters surround the village. They have neither any shore nor any boats to cross, and I wish so much to see his face. But how shall I get across? I have not seen my neighbor's face, even for a day. Elsewhere, Lalon, for that matter all the powers, speak of Aina Mohol, the hall of mirrors, a place where the one truth is diffracted into a million manifestations. Each is real as the one around it, but ultimately, all of them only reflections. Did Lalon, a man himself made of many stories, know about Fariduddin Attar's Conference of the Birds? But Ashinagar could also mean the city that lies in the seventh heaven, Arsh, or the city that lies in the inmost layer of the heart. Perhaps it is the country that Kabir invites us to when he sings, Chalo Hamara Desh. In the year 2010, the Bengali filmmaker Gautam Ghosh released a film called Moner Manush, which means man of the heart, which is a phrase that we shall return to later. A biographical film on Lalon, which opens with the same trope as this little talk, the meeting between Lalon and Jyotirindranath. In the film, the Lalon that we see is essentially, a fierce critic of religious strife, one who ridicules division on the basis of jat, which can mean religion, which can mean caste. And this is a Lalon that many of us urban intellectuals like to see, because this Lalon becomes a nice instrument in our hands. This Lalon is an almost messianic figure who presides over his ashram in a hippie guru-like, long-haired, bearded avatar. And indeed, this is one of the many mirror images of Lalon. The same Lalon who sang in another one of his most famous songs, Shob loke koy Lalon ki jat সংসারে, and Lalon bole jatir ki roop dekhlam na ei nojore, which means that everyone asks what caste or creed or religion is Lalon in this world, and Lalon says that what caste or creed or religion looks like, feels like, tastes like, smells like, I have not seen with my two eyes, I've only seen human beings. It goes on to say, in perhaps, considering that this was composed back in the mid-19th century, this is quite interesting, quite startling. So he says, Sunnat korle hoy Musulman, nari jatir ki hoy bidhan. Ami Bamon chini koita praman, ami Bamni chinbo kishere. Which means that if you perform the circumcision, then you become a Muslim, then what rule do you have for women? If I can know a Brahmin by looking at the sacred thread, how do I know a Brahmani, a Brahmin woman? Which is very similar in spirit to something that yet another dweller of the spaceless land of the city of mirrors, Hazrat Amir Khusro, said a few centuries earlier in the following Persian couplet when he said, Kafire ishkam Musalmani mara darkar nisht. Kafire ishkam Musalmani mara darkar nisht. Har rage muttar kashta hajate zunar nisht. Which means that I've become an infidel of love. I do not need the creed of Muslims. Each nerve, each fiber of my body is taut like the strings of a lute, a veena, and therefore I do not need the sacred thread of Hindus either. Lalon, of course, came out of what I could call only an immense counterculture that flourished in Bengal from the late 18th to the late 19th century, that comprised bauls, khokirs, dervishes, an immense merging or a confluence of human streams that had as its origins Sufism on the one hand, which made its way down from Delhi, from the legacy of Hazrat Nizamuddin Auliya, all the way down to Bengal. It had Tibetan Buddhism or Tantric Buddhism and something that is called the Shahujiya cult of Vaishnavism, which was a kind of Vaishnavism influenced by Buddhism again. And like other such people, other such cults before him, or before the Baus, they existed not in an antagonistic relationship to society, but in a complementary one, and their function was to question themselves as well as everything around them. Their function was to transgress and transcend all hierarchies, not only of caste or religion, but also of gender. And the Baus repeatedly speak of this figure that they call the Moner Manush, the man of the heart, referring to him or her by many names, Monurai or Alek Shai, which would literally mean the unseen one, the unseen beloved. Interestingly, Alek Shai that the Phokirs speak of could have a curious etymology, for Alek, which means unseen, may well be derived from the Arabic alakh, which literally means a clot but also refers to spur after a Quranic verse. So the invisible formless origin merges with the very palpable seed of life. Indeed, sexual practices perhaps inherited from Tantra played a central role in the creed that Lalon belonged to. For only in the union of human beings can the formless manifest itself, and thus the quest for emptiness was rooted very much in the corporeal, in the body, and in its memories. In a very different vein, Rabindranath Tagore would talk about the union of the body with the formless, saying, Shimar machi অসীম তুমি বাজাও আপন সুর, আমার মাঝে তোমার প্রকাশ, তাই এত মধুর, which means, amidst the finite, you're infinite. You play your own music. This is why your efflorescence in me is so sweet, so beautiful. And which image of Lalon shall I finish this little talk with? Perhaps the Lalon that is rooted in the ever-present moment of the body, a Lalon caught in the throes of the ecstatic dance of the bowels. For what this Lalon has to tell us is that the body is what matters. It is the body that is oppressed. It is the body that is forcibly displaced. The body that is consumed, turned into a commodity. The body that is genetically modified, subjected to the AFSPA. The body which is commoditized. It is only by emphatically asserting the body's autonomy, by celebrating it, that we can live in the ever-present moment, the few moments which we live here on this earth.
Thank you, Arka. It was Arka Mukhopadhyay, the City of Mirrors from the Ashinagar project, founder of the Ashinagar project. Arka's father, Rabdullah, is also a Karmavir awardee and works very closely with us. Orko's chosen this part and is trying to promote this, and I think I learned a lot from the little presentation of this, but I didn't know about all this. I'm sure some of you learned a lot from that too. And I actually could see Kabir on the stage up there. Any questions for Orko? No questions? Yes, there is not popular music. It's different. Yes?
I just have a suggestion. I think there are people who are not from that province
Sure.
who not really know what is Baul. I think before you start off, because you really went to Lala, people might not even heard of Lala. There should be some sort of predecessor, description.
Some preamble.
Yeah, so for what is Baul and what is the concept of Baul? Though it is embedded in the Bengali folklore, the people outside would not really know. That would be my humble advice and suggestion.
I think that's very valid advice, Dr. Thank you. But I think it was the scarcity of time. Orko does a lot of workshops in companies and corporate houses using this medium to kind of help people realize the leader within. So thank you, Arka. A big hand for Orko, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. There is Arka Mukhopadhyay. Thank you, Arka.